the Q&A, so it's up to the audience. If you can just fire away your question, anything you would like to ask anyone sitting here.
Okay, the question was, am I prepared to talk about my teleportation process? Is that right? Yeah. Okay. Okay, well, it came in 2 stages. I spent a lot of time actually doing consciousness work on the land in rather like what the North American Indians would do, nourishing the land. And particularly my relationship with one particular standing stone, which I had an attraction to. And that's the Gertine portal one that I showed on the slide. So I managed to get a date when I had to be at the standing stone, which was 6 months ahead of time. There was quite a process on the way to this, but trying to make this very short, that when the event happened, now this is an event, how shall I put it, you create these events. In other words, you're creating the reality for this to happen. So that particular, this was, by the way, witnessed, all right? The first thing that happened to me was that it happened on a Sunday morning, way up in the mountains where the standing stone was, and as if I was put to sleep for about 3 hours. The other person near me, who was from a North American reservation, had witnessed this and was paralyzed and trying to get over to me because in front of her was a construct. After 3 hours, both the Indian woman and myself, we were hypersensitized, like our whole bodies were very, very, very sensitive. And eventually, when I got back to Dublin, I went into a bookshop. Now, I didn't know this was actually happening to me because in that process, I went into a high vibratory level, keeping centered. So you're very sensitive when you're meeting people. Meaning, if you said boo to me, I nearly fall over, all right? So I was in a bookshop and I was after a particular book, which I couldn't find. But when I went up to the cashier's desk, the guy behind the desk said to me, I don't know what's going on here, but you were over there and then you disappeared. And then I saw you over here. And he said, I'm absolutely, he was very uncomfortable. The point I'm trying to make here is that when you go into these states, other things happen you may not realize. But from an external side, they're actually, people are seeing these things happening to you. I didn't know it was happening to me at all. It's just, I was trying to keep centered on this high vibratory level, which I did. Call it a portal, encounter, or whatever. But that's what I went through. And these were the after effects from it. I haven't actually. I have actually read, interesting enough, at the time that the poet Heaney passed away there about 3 years ago, I think, that there was a lot of discussions on the radio about Heaney during that week. But what sort of interested me was, and I had to stop the car on this, is that the poem dealing with what's called the lightning was talked about. And in it, Heaney was talking about this sailing ship that was floating above a monastery, and this rope, we like to call it. Now, don't forget, we're dealing with the 11th, 12th century here. But this rope was sent down, and this person also came down on this rope, met the people, the monks or whoever, and he went up again. Now, this triggered me to look into this further, and indeed, that was actually in one of the annals, which I can't even remember now, but I discovered actually 2 other places in Ireland with a very similar situation. One was at, I think it was Clonmacnoise, and also another place in Tipperary, which I can't remember now. But there seem to be the same characteristics of what I've just mentioned to you, but of the 11th and 12th century.
Yes, go ahead.
So lots of people have asked me today, they thought I was actually here visiting. I live here, and as you can tell by my accent, it's South Roscommon that I'm from. But I work in Westmeath. So Uisneach would be a regular Sunday hike for us. And so, of course, you know, when you blow into Ireland, 20 years later, I'm still a blow-in, you hear all the tales and all the stories. And so the hill of Uisneach, which was the high seat of the kings, you can see 21 counties from the top of the hill. And this, for many, many centuries, was considered to be the geographical center of Ireland. But when NASA came along and was able to map countries from outer space, as we can now see every other day on Twitter or Facebook, they discovered that really the actual dead center of Ireland was on a tiny little island that is in the middle of our lake in Athlone called Lough Ree. And there's this little teeny island, and so back in the 80s when this discovery was first made, weren't we so proud that we were just the middle of it all. So they decided they were going to have a ceremony. And they went out, and and the island is literally no bigger than this room. And so they went out because the mayor was going to get boated out. You can see it from shore, it's not that far. And he was going to go out, and they were going to put a plaque on the spot because this was the center of Ireland. So lo and behold, they go out to go clear off all of the brush on the island, and there's already a plaque. And they went out and carbon dated it. It's 5,000 years old, and it is a boat. And it sits on top. You can see it clear as day from shore. I take every one of my visitors who comes through to see this. I think did I take you guys out there? Alona, I know you've seen it, yeah. And there it sits, and you know, there's your sky boat, and this is 5,000 years old. So there's a lot of merit to that, and I think it's quite interesting that this location could only be deemed from outer space. So there you go. Go chew on that one.
I think it. Okay. I think it's also very important to take these kind of questions serious and share them, because your ability to evaluate your experience and your interest, your curiosity, is very important as well to trigger more appearances of ancient stuff that wants to come up. And I mean, I noticed when people come in and they bring a load of spirits with them. I had one lady coming in with 30 nuns at the same time singing. I was like, wait a minute, what is this? Oh, we are so happy. They need to get their story out. So when you listen to your intuitive sensation, you will bring it further. Well done. Thank you.
Yeah, Ursula.
Yeah, it sounds so familiar to me when you talk about the sky boats, because there were several tribes in the Philippines where I lived for 27 years. There were gypsies, the Badjaus, and they would bury their dead. They get their dead born on the sea and so forth. And then they would bury their dead on a coral island, and they put sky boats on top of the graves. And some people had also other experiences, like that they see a person being brought by a sky boat, and there are many stories. It's very, very similar.
I think you've answered one question that's been driving me demented for a long time, and the doctors thought I was mad every time I went and spoke to them. This is for the 2 ladies on the right. When they placed the thing on my head, and it got warmer and warmer, and it roasted the head off me, and I passed out. When I got back home, I was just sitting on my armchair, and I used to think I was going to spontaneously explode. You know, I used to get so warm, but when you hit it on my back, used to go on fire, my legs, my whole body. And when I used to go to bed at night, I just kick the clothes off because I thought I'd just catch fire. And I think with your Kundalini, that explained it to me, and I'm thankful, and I'm really delighted to be part of all of this. Thank you.
I might just add something to understand the story. So Jerry had an experience. He was taken into a ship, and he saw many people, and they were like in a deep trance, so they couldn't move. It was like, I don't know if you've seen the movie Cowboys and Aliens, you know, where they're just hanging there, and they're not moving, kind of in that way. But for some reason, he just woke up, and he couldn't move, but he saw people all ages, you know, just like lined up in a row. And then he was taken, or it was like taken into another room, and he was awake, fully awake, and he could communicate with that being who was kind of controlling the whole process. And Jerry, I hope I'm good telling your story. Kind of, you correct me, please. And and this being was asking Jerry, why you're not afraid, yeah. And so he wasn't afraid because when he was younger, he needed to pick up his father from the pub, and he needed to cross the graveyard. So he overcame his fear. Now, part of the procedure, he could remember, they put a technical equipment. They showed you a few things, and you went in communication with this being, but you couldn't see it because it was in the dark, but you could identify it was one for you non-human. And so they put like a device on his head, and this was roasting, so whatever they did. And the being was asking him, okay, I'm going to make you unconscious because otherwise I will hurt. But Jerry said, no, I want to stay conscious because I do want to remember. And this is the piece he was just sharing with you. That was when it came on his top, and he went, it was so hot that he went unconscious. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Your name is Jerry? Jerry? Okay, that's lovely. I can tell by your shining eyes that you do know what you're talking about. So that's very lovely. And it's lovely to meet a man of your age, if you don't mind my saying so, who has activated Kundalini. That's lovely, and you're recalling the heat and the sensations quite accurately. Thank you.
This question is directed, I think, at Kerry or anyone who can speak to psychotronic stalking. Does anyone have explain any experiences with that? You know what I'm saying, right?
Okay, well, this is happening a lot, and there are reasons for it. And I always say, as I said yesterday, I think, it's important to know why is it happening to you? Why have you even attracted this, or whoever you're referring to your life, so that it's not a one-way street. It's never a one-way street, anything that happens to us. And so it's a learning experience, and it may have to do with a mission that you have. So anyone that this is happening to, people online as well. In other words, you are experiencing something in order to bring your gift forward. And it may be a special gift. We each have very unique gifts to bring to the planet. And so you might, although it may be painful and be very uncomfortable, and of course, there are negative beings with certain purposes, and you may be a bloodline, or you may have contacted, in some cases, secret information. They are afraid that you might remember, so they are especially trying to keep a lid on your frequency, so to speak. So they're trying to dumb it down, upset you, cause illness, cause you to exit out this dimension quickly, that sort of thing. But you can withstand it, and there are a number of ways you can do that. And I did talk with, I guess it was Sandra on the tour that we went on. She is a healer in the audience who spoke yesterday. And she has also experienced this with her clients, talked about people who want to deal with this. So, you know, it's on the internet. There's lots of different ways to cope with it. It's definitely happening. Your government may have targeted you. Your neighborhood might have turned you in. It could be something of this nature. It could be the CIA, the NSA. It could be just they chose you as a guinea pig, an experimental animal. It depends what country you live in and what they're focusing on with you. There will be something. It could be your father. It could be your grandfather. It could be a secret project they were involved in. There's some knowledge that you have usually that they're trying to keep you from remembering or keep you from telling other people. So you can tap into that. A good way to change that sort of balance and trajectory is to, in essence, remember. Now, and then to tell people. Because we are at a time when telling the truth is a very radical act, and it is the way we're freeing each other. So if you have a truth to reveal and you're keeping it silent, they are attracted to keep you down. But once you tell your truth, they have nothing to do. There's no reason to stop you anymore, right? So you need to go with that and speak your truth, bring it out to the light. If you're hiding something, whatever it happens to be, could be a family history, could be a number of things. Maybe you know where something is buried, you know, anything. And also to withstand it, to handle it. You do need to meditate. Crystals can help. You can change your frequency and also make it harder to find you by putting, there's a certain kind of little magnets. Magnets and crystals can change your signature so that when they seek you out, they can't quite zero in on you, something's changed. And you have to put them in your pocket, walk around maybe for 15 minutes like that, and then take them out again. You need to be a moving target, so you need to go into nature, get rid of the electronic smog that we all experience on a daily basis. Make sure you walk barefoot in nature, connect wherever, whatever kind of nature you're in. You can go to power places to amplify your vibration, to change it, to change your DNA, and so on. So that the higher your frequency is, and you can change your vibrational frequency. This is something you do through meditation. You might think of it as when you're low, it's slower, and when you're high, it's fast in a very sort of etheric way. So it's not like it's fast like you're moving fast, but it's speedier, so you actually can tap into anything, anywhere, instantaneously. So you need to be clear. You need to get rid of, as I say, this electronic smog around us. There are things you can do through visualization. Mirjam was talking about expanding, starting with the walls around here and starting to realize that you're not locked into your body, right? You can go to the sun. You can go to Mars or the moon or wherever. You can start remote viewing. You can start teleporting yourself to places. Just write them down to see what you found there. Start to remember who you are. Start to connect with other beings. Start to see what's coming in. Start writing. Start keeping a record. If you're not a writer and you want to use audio, you can do it that way. It's just it's a way of mirroring back to yourself what you're experiencing and starting to build up your aura so it's large so that they can't get in, you see. This will also, there are ways you can also send the vibrations back. You can reflect back off of yourself. You can visualize yourself in a teardrop or a circle or whatever you like, and you can actually bounce it off back to the people that send it. You can also, bless them, free them, and release them in peace and love. I would not send your love to them. You want to stay focused. You want to stay centered. Because a lot of people, a lot of New Age people do get this kind of mistaken notion they want to love everything. But love is, on human terms, is a very sort of messy, complex situation. We're talking deep love. You don't need to send it anywhere. You need to reside in it. You need to reflect it out. You need to radiate it out. You are love. This is it, you know. So you stay centered in your heart and connect with your higher self. And there are ways to get beyond it. Now, there will be times when it's difficult. But as I say, it's always important to be a moving target, which means do not stay in the place where they target you, okay? Get up, get in your car, drive to a restaurant, drive to a beach. You know, in other words, put yourself in other circumstances, lighten your mood, laugh. Laughter is a huge healing energy. Find friends, connect with your friends, surround yourself with beautiful animals and people, you know, that you love, this sort of thing. There are so many ways to deal with the situation. Understand that you are not powerless within it. This is a temporary thing. You will move through it. You absolutely will. So, thank you.
Sorry, Kerry, could you just define psychotronic stalking and how they do it?
Well, they use scalar weapons. They are also using, there is a, you know, I'm not a physicist, but they use sort of hyperdimensional physics to also target you. The ETs have taught them these methods. It came through Germany. The Nazis were working with it in the early days. The Russians certainly have used it and worked with it. United States, it's very plentiful. Project Paperclip, go back to the Nazis, you know, study Thomas Bearden. He talks a lot about the kinds of weaponry that they have at their disposal. You know, scalar waves, particle beam weapons, electronics, you know, all the cell towers, those are beaming stuff. They can send a signal to a cell tower and then distribute it through a community. They can, you know, mind control your television, get rid of your television. You know, you can, if you have a computer and you can watch things on your computer, if you like stories, you want to watch TV, nothing wrong with that. You can learn all kinds of things from that. But you can cover the camera on your computer on a regular basis. Make sure you do that. Also, again, get away from your computer. Close it down. If you have a cell phone, never carry it on your body. Not a good idea. There are little cases, like you can put it in leather, I think helps close down the frequency to some degree. Put it in another room, never sleep with it, and you know, do these logical things. I unplug my wireless connector at night. I don't have, what do they call that smart meter thing? I paid money so that I don't have that hooked up. I don't even trust, though, that they didn't do it anyway. I mean, I'm sorry, you know, this kind of stuff. But, you know, understanding that we are ultimately more powerful than they are. They wouldn't have to do all of this. Think logically. They wouldn't have to do all this if we weren't so amazing that they have to keep inventing new ways to try to mess with us, you know? So this is what's going on. But as far as the actual science behind psychotronics, you know, you need an electronics. I mean, Miles is an electronics expert, I believe. But there's a lot of techniques. It's, you know, kind of falling on the electronic side. There's more than that. There is a sort of hyperdimensional AI aspect to all of it as well. So to be aware of that. 5, like they call it, what is it called? 5G. 5G, you know, is what's coming. This is going to go from instrument, you know, from thing to thing to thing to thing, and surround us all with this energy, okay? So Mark Richards, one of my witnesses, talks about how it jumps. AI can jump from that machine right there to that computer there to that over there, and pretty soon you're absolutely surrounded by it. 5G is bringing that on in a big way. So it is happening to everyone. We are in a net of, in essence, psychotronics. There's a warfare going on. There's a constant warfare there. In fact, there's a website you can watch on the internet where you can actually see it bouncing between countries in like this mad way. It's I forget the name of it, but there's a lot to it, you know, I have to say. But anyway.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I might.
Can I add one thing?
Me too.
Huh?
You first?
No, go.
Okay. One thing, what I experience is people who are targeting, what helps is to get fragmented aspects of you back. Because, you know, we all, even with birth, we fragment already. You know, if it was like, you know, if you've been born too early, you know, you're losing already energy, or it was a difficult birth, and so on. So you're losing a lot of energy and aspects of ourselves along the way. And it has a strong effect, as I explained in my talk, on our energetical field. And once we get these aspects back and they are traumatized, it's kind of like you're getting your energy back, and your whole energy field becomes much, much stronger. Now, I had a lot of problems myself, not what you're talking about, these attacks, but I had other attacks. Now, with the moment I started to really look into early trauma I never wanted to look into, and kind of brought it into healing and integrated all these missing parts, they couldn't get me so easy anymore. It was simply not possible, because the main reason was as long as I was stuck in this traumatic event, and it's like a shock for the body. It's not only the emotional but also the physical element. So the body stores all the information. We are coming out also out of a victim mode. You know, it's like I can't do anything, because that is also what they want us to believe. You know, so we are trained from a very, very early age. There's nothing what I can do, so we stay in this. So I found it for myself, integrating fragmented aspects back into your field, and also with clients, very, very beneficial. And on top, the more you're connected, the more you will also get insights what you can do, because we all are guided. We have to remember, as Mary Helen said, you know, it's not just, even it's sometimes so difficult what happens, and we think, you know, it can't be, you know, I was choosing it, but every one of us is guided. We are never, ever a single moment on our own here, never. But it's also, it seems like it takes effort from our side to do something. We just cannot sit there and do nothing. It just takes effort, and I found Kerry was explaining it very, very good. Sometimes if you go through a really difficult situation, it turns out at the end to be a blessing, a hidden blessing, because you're learning so much about it. And in my case, that's the reason why I can talk about these things, because I went through it myself.
Absolutely spot on, both. There's one thing that two words that I would like to submit to this, and that's creativity and intuition. It's very, like, say, female aspects that have been suppressed for a long, long time. When we allow our creativity to flow, we will always win, because we are far more creative than the powers to be. And I mean, I started as an artist, and I was furious the first times I found out that people were copying my art. But then I realized I can make something new. They cannot. They have to copy. So they use your identity to give themselves an identity. And that's exactly what's happening with these forces as well. They look for an identity, and therefore they use you. So when you realize that, and then beyond that, you can realize you're not important. There is nothing to take serious, because you're just light, so you're everything. You set yourself free. And this is not an easy thought, but sit in it, and it will embrace you. Thank you.
Any other questions? Oh, there. I give you the mic.
Thanks so much. This arises out of a conversation I was having with Mirjam late last night, and she said, "Oh, you know, there's so much I could say about extraterrestrials and so forth if anyone ever asked me, but nobody ever asked me." Well, now, my question is, I'm just going to flip this, and this is maybe starting with Mary Helen and Katherina and Mirjam, and then if there's time, lovely to have words from Kerry and Eamonn as well. Thinking of Miles and the wonderful, more global audience he's created for tonight, if there was one question you just wish someone would be asking you tonight, what would that be and what would your answer be? Very good. Thinking about this question.
Thank you.
What needs to be asked?
Who starts?
Oh, was I first?
Yeah.
Of course, I was making a joke. I was like, I said I hadn't been on a date in 4 years.
You wish someone would ask you for a date?
No, I don't have time. Ooh. Do you know when the waitress comes and you haven't picked? And you're like, pick somebody else. I actually can't think right now of
Can I help you out?
one thing. Oh,
I have a question already.
yeah, go on.
Okay.
This is the one question I wish somebody would ask me.
I have a question I'm asking myself. So if I would ask myself, what would be the question? It would be the question, who am I? Everything that we are talking about, it's really to discover who we are. That's what it is. So who am I? This is the question, actually. This would be my question. The answer, right. So go like next 3 hours sitting here. No, I'm just kidding. To be honest, I think there's not really a question, because I think what we really are can be not defined in any way. And we experience everything through a human perspective. So we have our categories, our labels, and we just try to describe things based on the vocabulary and experiences we have here. I think who we really are. And the question itself, it's maybe a little bit misleading, because the question is, who am I? So we have to start with the I. And the I from the language is a single person. But we are not a single person. But we have to start somewhere, and we have to use language. So that's how it is here in this duality. And I think there's not really an answer, but it's more an inspirational question to really find out, am I this, am I that? You know, who am I really? And I think Kerry said it in your talk. Everyone is here to find out who we really are. And, you know, in my view, it goes beyond an I. It cannot be put in any words. But we cannot read about it. It cannot be, you cannot learn it, cannot be taught about it. So I go with Eckhart Tolle here, it can only be experienced.
I thought of one. This actually gets asked a lot, and especially when people are in a lot of pain, and whether that's an emotional pain or a physical pain. And, you know, I could have just delivered this fantastic speech explaining all this, and somebody's always going to ask, if we already are that which we seek, if we already are divine love and wisdom, why on earth would we come here and put ourselves through this agony? I hear that a lot. So I think that might be a good question to answer. And it's actually quite easy, because simple even. So any thrill seekers in the room? Anybody who loves adrenaline junkie, you know? Of course you are. You know, those cliff divers, bungee jumpers. There's a method to their madness. They absolutely love that sensation. Okay, and so what I explain to people is picture yourself right now at home, and since nobody wants a TV in their house, you've got a big giant screen computer. But let's just say, for argument's sake, you've got a giant screen TV. You're a movie buff. You love this stuff. And the refrigerator is full of everything you love. There's lots of toilet paper in the bathroom for when you need to pause for a break. The couch is fluffy and comfortable. You've got on your comfy slippers, and you are surrounded by your family, the ones who love you most and the ones who you love. You click a button, and on pops your favorite film. You are watching on your brand new gigantic TV with your surround sound stereo. It is a most glorious experience. Ooh, I think I'd like a cup of tea. And you pause your movie. And you go to the kitchen and you help yourself for the cup of tea. You come back in. Little Johnny needs to go to the toilet. He can pause it, go off to the toilet. And you're having basically a lovely family night in front of your home cinema. And then the next day, you might get a phone call from your best friend. And there's a particular film star that you love, or there's a particular movie that you've been dying to see. And she calls you up and she goes, ooh, let's go to the cinema tomorrow night. And immediately inside of you, this thing that I think is a very lost art among human beings, the art of anticipation. And this feeling begins to well up inside of you, and you're like, ooh, oh, exciting. I'm leaving the husband at home. He can watch the children. I'm going to meet my girlfriend. This is fantastic. And you begin to plan in this series of events, and these little endorphins are beginning to release, and you're actually having a physical experience with this. And then you arrive to the cinema, and what's the first smell that hits you when you walk in the door? It's the buttery popcorn. You can't make that stuff at home. It's not the same. And if you're like me, you get to the cinema, and it's when you cheat. I never drink a soft drink, but I'm having one here because I'm at the cinema, do you know? And so you're there, you can see the buzz, and people are out, and there's teenagers laughing over here, and there's people who are, you know, husband and wife. Here's a first date over here, and you're taking in all of this stimuli. It's fantastic. You get in, and there's a gigantic screen, even bigger than your TV, and on pops your favorite film. And it's a story, it's heartwarming, it's tugging at the heartstrings, and there's a fella sitting over here who's coughing to pretend like he's not actually crying. And this excites you because you're in the experience. Can't you feel it? You're in this. Why on earth would you leave the comfort of that fantastic home cinema? What are you getting? A completely different set of stimuli. You're seeing the exact same movie. Why would you take yourself out of the comfort of perfection to go watch a movie at the cinema? I rest my case.
Very well. Very easy to picture that. I'd like to point out two things. That one thing is that my encounters with ETs and UFOs up till now have been very positive, although I saw some that I felt like I had to stay away from. But the ones that, especially the one that came into my studio to be present for a client who wanted to meet his real father, was very impressive. Especially because they asked me to come into the UFO and see what it was like. That was mind-blowing, but also heartwarming. If you ask me what kind of questions should they ask, any question, go for the question, because if you don't ask, it cannot be given. And if you ask, you allow the answer to come to you. And I want to tell one thing that I've experienced. A long time ago, I went on a course to read the Akasha. And to me, the Akasha was always like the magic word. Everything is in there. All the answers are there. So we learned to go there, and it was pretty easy. And I went in and I looked up for, and I've done that several times. I went to the library, opened a book, asked for a certain book, open the book, look at how the book looks, and then open the book on the page of this person and see what was on it. and you can get the answer. So whatever question you have, go to someone who can give you a reflection of your inner answer. But the funny thing is, when I looked on that page, the answer was there really clearly written for me to read or to inner know. I don't read Akasha. I know Akasha. And it suddenly disappeared, and the whole page went transparent, and there was nothing. So, whoa, this is a bigger answer than I was looking for.
Do you know what came to mind when you mentioned that? Lessons in non-thinking. That's my answer to it. Did you hear that?
Lessons?
Lessons in non-thinking.
Yes. Don't ask why, go for the how and what.
Well, I think I've talked enough, but I want to say that hopefully we can still have dinner tonight before the... Because, no, I mean, restaurants close at a certain time. We're kind of at their mercy. So just wanted to say that for everyone, because I didn't want to keep people too long where they can't get food. So thank you very much for coming. More tomorrow, right? So thank you.
Okay, that was a very smart editing. So we close it now. Thank you so much for the question. Have a good evening and see you tomorrow. And for the ones who are just here for the day, thank you so much for being here and bringing your really positive energy into the conference. Thank you so much. Have a good night's sleep and a good dinner.